We were made for more. We were made for more than all the chaos around us. We were made for more than being exhausted at the normal, mundane lives that we're often handed. We were made for more. Or as we've been saying in this series, we were made to run with the horses. And now that's not a phrase that we use every day. And here's where that phrase comes from. See, in this series, we're looking at one of the strongest men I've ever read about. A man whose life persevered such extreme odds that we're still talking about him 2,600 years later. We're looking at the life of a man named Jeremiah, a preacher who preached in one of the craziest times in ancient history. He preached for 40 years in Israel to 5 different kings through the destruction of the nation, through wars, through attacks from not only outside invading armies trying to come in the gates, but also from the political enemies and so-called friends inside the gates. He faced death multiple times, miraculously surviving. And today, 2,600 years later, we're still talking about him. We're still talking about how he knew in his bones that he was made for more. He was made to run with the horses. And we're asking, how did he know that? And how do we get some of that? Last week, we heard about how he was called by God to influence the nation of Israel, to lead them through this crazy storm and season that they were in. And that's what he's been trying to do. He's trying to faithfully do what God called him to do, faithfully trying to do what God told him to. But this phrase, run with the horses, it starts actually when Jeremiah is throwing a fit. Like there's this point where Jeremiah, he's just been trying to be what he's supposed to be in the mundane, run-of-the-mill, everyday moments of life. He's trying to do his best, and he just gets exhausted, bone-tired, overwhelmed. And he's at that point, he is ready to give up. He's just trying to be faithful, trying to do what he knows he's supposed to do, trying to put one more step in front of another, but that has worn him out. And he is just throwing a pity party and letting God have it. And he is just shouting at God. Man, listen to this. Listen to what Jeremiah in his exhaustion is saying to God. He's saying, Lord, you have always given me justice when I bring a case before you. So let me bring this complaint. Why are the wicked so prosperous? You ever felt that? He continues and he says, why are the evil people so happy? Why are they getting to have all the fun and the toys and all the success? You know why, God? Because you planted them and you have allowed them to take root and prosper. God, all this chaos in front of us, all of this mess, all of this exhaustion that I'm facing, it's your fault. You could have stopped it. You could have done something about it. You allowed it. This, God, is your fault. And I don't know if you noticed, God, but your name is on their lips, but you are far from their hearts. God, are you not listening? Or do you not hear how they're using your name as an adjective, a cuss word, a swear word? Are you not even listening to all that is being said? How they're just pretending to listen to you, pretending to follow you, pretending to be religious and say all the right words. But God, you see their hearts. You see how nasty they are. You see how far from you they are. But as for me, Lord, you know my heart. You see me. You test my thoughts. So since you know, let's get honest, God. Since you know, since you already know what's in my head, God, let's get really real here. You know what I want, God? God, I want you to drag these people away like sheep to be butchered. Set them aside to be slaughtered. Dang. Preacher throwing down. Drag these people away like sheep to be butchered. Dude, preacher boy is ticked. He's mad. He's exhausted. And he's saying some crazy stuff. Guys, what pastor says, butcher them. How long must this land mourn? Even the grass in the field has withered. The wild animals and birds have disappeared because of the evil in the land. For the people have said, the Lord doesn't see what's ahead of us. Man, can't you just feel his honesty, his hurt, his exhaustion, his frustration? Haven't you wondered, if you're being honest, some of the exact same things though? Like, have you ever looked around and just said, why are the wicked prospering? He's cheating on his taxes and his business is flourishing. I'm trying to be honest and I can't pay my employees and I'm having to lay them off. Like, why are they cheating and their life is easy? They're lying and being deceitful and I'm being honest and I am like struggling through all my grades. God, why do they have the easy life acting that way and I'm trying to be good and follow you and do the right things and my life is not? Man, I love Jeremiah's honesty. God, I'm just trying to follow you. I'm just trying to do this right thing. And God, those who don't give a rip about you, they're living in the high and mighty and the easy lane. And I'm trying to do what's right. And it is awful and exhausting and wearing me out. And then he gets really, really, really real. And he says what so many of us have felt at times, but I imagine we're too ashamed to admit that we've said it. He just says, God, just drag them off like sheep to be butchered. Guys, that is real. He's not holding anything back. But have you ever been there? You ever had that moment with your ex? God, it'd be so much easier if she was dead. Your boss, that board member, that neighbor, your teenager, that family member. Guys, Jeremiah, he's just getting real. And here's how God responds. Here's how God responds to his pity party, just lashing out all of his emotions, all of this rawness, all of this exhaustion. And here is what I love about it. Take a note. It's not shameful. It's not scorning. God doesn't come around him and smack him upside the back of the head and says, get it together, be better. It's almost like God comically, affirmingly responds. And he says to Jeremiah, if you have raced with men on foot and they wore you out, how are you gonna compete with horses? Man, if you've been running with men and they wore you out, how are you supposed to race against horses? It's like God saying, oh, that stuff, that's tripping you up. Oh, you're letting them get in your head so bad? Oh, you're losing your marbles over that? Oh, Jeremiah, don't stoop to their level. Don't cower to that. Jeremiah, you were made for more. Jeremiah, you were made to run with horses. Man, Jeremiah, don't let that stop you. That's so inspiring to me. That's so hopeful. And I so badly want some of that. But if I'm honest, I don't want to get exhausted by national politics or local politics or office politics or crazy family members or neighbors who don't have a clue how to be human and civilized or hormonal teenagers whose frontal cortex hasn't fully developed yet. Like, I want to be able to run with horses. I don't want to get exhausted running against mere men. I don't know about you, but if I'm honest, I do. Like, that's awesome to hear. It's fun to want to be like Jeremiah, but I'm guessing there's times that you're like me, that you're like, I'm not. That's awesome for Jeremiah, that he was made for more, made to run with the horses. But not only am I tired from trying to run with mere men, I'm exhausted. I'm annoyed. I'm petty. And if I'm really honest, there's moments I get really angry and bitter and resentful. And I know you know those moments. I wanna be like a Jeremiah. I wanna be made for more. But there's so many times I don't feel like I am. Like I'm not enough. Man, it's so easy to say, run with the horses. But how in the world do you actually live like that? How did Jeremiah go from getting tired of running with men to being able to run with horses? How did he go to becoming one of the greatest heroes in the most printed book in the history of the world? How do we do that? How do we become like that? Well, Jeremiah didn't go there overnight. He didn't become that overnight. And God had to lovingly remind him of some of the truths around him. And God loved him, loves us so much that he actually put him into the middle of a living illustration. And God puts his arm around Jeremiah and he says, Jeremiah, and by extension you, and by extension me, he said, Jeremiah, I want you to go see the potter. I want you to go to the potter's house and see what you can learn. Jeremiah, Go to the potter's house and take note of what you see. I had a history professor. He said something once that just threw me for such a loop. He said, what historians long to know the most, but what's often the most unrecorded and most unknown aspects of history was the everyday, normal, run-of-the-mill, simple moments of life. The things so common, so commonplace that those living it didn't even deem it necessary to record it, because why would you write down what everyone already knows? It would be like some of the historians today recording what type of cups we drink our coffee in, or how paper versus plastic versus glass dinnerware is used, or how a toilet from Home Depot or is installed, or about the fiercest battle that happens every night in my house, and that is figuring out what stupid Tupperware lid goes with which stupid Tupperware bottom, and you're losing your marbles over the leftovers. Guys, I hate with an absurd passion trying to match the random Tupperware dishes. If you get it, you get it. It drives me batty. And if you have a solution, please, for the love of all things good and true, tell me, because I want to burn it every night. No historian is recording that stuff. The basic life stuff, the tension stuff, and especially thousands of years ago when you had to either painstakingly and expensively chisel it into something, or painstakingly and expensively make paper and preserve it and protect it through wars and then fires and weather, and then re-record it when the paper finally started to rot. No one would do that, and especially when only 1% to 5% of the population could even read it to begin with. All of that stuff, out of all the stuff that could be recorded, captured, protected, preserved, re-recorded, cups and plates and toilets and containers didn't make the list. So when we study ancient scriptures, sometimes there's words behind the words that to the original hearers was glaringly obvious. But to us, distant, removed, in the future, we have to slow down and dig in to find. And I think this moment is one of those moments for Jeremiah. And I think this moment is one of those moments for us. See, Jeremiah, and for those who lived with him, potters were everywhere. They were crucial. They were a critical part of life. Pottery was how a vast majority of their day-to-day items of life were made. Not only were cups and plates and bowls and toilets made, but also, I don't know if you knew this, but also storage and cooking and lighting and transportation and trade and measurements for commerce and official seals and religious and ritual use, burial practices, roof tiles, pipes, bricks for buildings, tablets for writing. Even broken pottery was recycled as receipts and letters. And on top of all of that, you still had your artistic pieces and your statues and your decorations that the wealthy would use to decorate their home. Pottery was everywhere, and everyone used it, and everyone knew a potter, and everyone knew what a potter did, and everyone would walk by a potter and know what was happening in those moments. And so they knew things about pottery that I'm guessing a lot of us had no clue about. And so I was actually delighted to get connected to Bill, and Bill's a part of our Ephrata campus, and I was thrilled that he was willing to come and spend his time with us, helping us experience the art of pottery. Did you know that pottery is made from clay? Clay that's dug up out of the ground, and when you start with it, it oftentimes is junk. It oftentimes is this rock hard, dry, totally unusable, unmoldable, unredeemable piece of junk. It's unusable. So the potter has to start with something unusable and make it usable. And so what they would do is they would take this dry, stubborn, unmoldable clay, and they would infuse life back into it. Today, Bill was telling me the way that they do this, they'll actually take this old, unusable, dried out, hardened clay, and they'll put it in a bag full of water, get all the air out of it. They then would take that and put it in a bigger container of water and force it under the water. And then the pressure from the water in the container would force the water in the bag into the pores of the clay. And I heard this process is called breathing life back into the clay, reclaiming the clay. This living water bringing life to this dry, hard clay, reclaiming it for a purpose, which you don't need a Harvard degree to start to see some pretty cool connections between God making us from dust of the earth and Jesus being called the living water and us being brought back to life, reclaimed to true life and being restored. Guys, there's something that happens when you just step near a potter. There's some cool metaphors that start to preach just when you come near and see what Jeremiah was seeing. So Jeremiah walks in, and he walks into the potter's house, and he's seeing this dry, unusable, unmoldable clay just sitting there, lifeless, purposeless, full of wasted potential that needs a potter to help it realize it was made for more. But what's wild is once the potter has painstakingly breathed life back into this dry, dead, hard clay, which starts the instant the clay is put in the water. And this may take days or weeks or months for this living water to penetrate deep into the heart of this clay, depending on how stubborn and resistant it is. But once this transformation has occurred and the clay starts to be usable and moldable, it's still so far from being able to be made into its purpose. See, the next thing is it has to be cut and stacked and cut and stacked and cut and stacked and pressed and pressed and pressed over and over and over again, which starts a process called wedging. And this is where they take this now wet clay and they cut it with a wire, they stack it, they inspect it, they press it back in, they see all of its hidden parts, and they do it over and over and over again. They cut it again, break it again, look deep inside it again. And then once that's been cut and stacked and cut and stacked, they bring it over and they start a process called wedging, where they push it and roll it and press it and push it and roll it and press it. And when Bill showed me this, he made it look so easy, and I instantly learned his forearms are like 40 times stronger than mine, because the amount of pressure they are putting on this clay is unbelievable. Pressing and rolling, pressing and rolling, again and again and again, removing all the impurities, pushing all the air out. Because if they don't push all those air bubbles out, pull them out, and get that clay even and consistent, when it gets to the wheel, it'll be wasted. And worse, if the air is left in there, when it goes into the test of the fire to come, it will explode, and it will ruin itself and ruin others around them. Think about that. This pushing, this wedging, this exposing, this painful process is for the good of the pot and everyone around it. This wedging process is no joke. And I was shocked to discover how long the potter would work this clay over and over and over and over again, repeating it again and again and again and again. Man, he's not trying to hurt the clay. He's not mad at the clay. He's not annoyed with the clay. He is just trying to prepare the clay, to prepare the clay for its purpose, to ensure the clay can survive the trials and tests and fire coming its way. And some of us need to stop longing to be turned into something and just let God keep working something in us. I'm gonna say that again. Some of us need to hear it. Some of us need to stop longing to be turned into something and just let God keep working something in us. So let him keep wedging and pushing and cutting and exploring the innermost thoughts and desires, and to let him keep revealing those hidden places that if left unhealed and uncured and undealt with, the hurt will happen in the future. We will hurt us and it will hurt others in the process. And guys, I need you to know, I personally hate this process. I hate this process. I want to be on the potter's wheel. I want to be made into something. I want to be finished. I want to be perfect and ready and good enough to be what I was intended to be. I want to be running with the horses, not being pressed yet again. To be examined yet again. I want to be good enough to move on. Now, to all of our high schoolers and college students and young adults, we all intuitively know that that's what our season of our 20s is all about. We always don't like it, but we kind of know it's crucial to the process of that stage of life. We get it. But let's get honest for a minute. Some of us, we're not in our 20s anymore. We're in our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, and it feels like this is the stage of life that we're at. Or worse, it feels like we're just starting this stage. Or even more annoyingly, it feels like we're being brought back to the stage yet again, and God is pressing, and we feel the pain of being cut open, exposed, our hearts explored, and it hurts. It's frustrating. It's not what we want in this season of life. We want to be running with the horses, not being wedged, impressed, and prepared, and exposed. We don't want that to happen again and again and again. We don't want this step. It's one thing to have it in our 20s. It's like, make me into who you want me to be. But man, it's another when God starts to do that again in our 40s and 50s and 60s. I wish I could tell you all of that as some hypothetical projection that I see in others around me. But for some wild reason, God, in all of his love and mercy and goodness for me, decided that this year was gonna be a year of wedging. So for the last year, I have felt God personally pushing and pressing and exploring and exposing and working and pressing and pushing and exposing, and it has been one of the hardest personal years of my life. I have felt so exposed and pressed and pushed and cut and exposed and pressed and cut and exposed and pressed and cut again and again. And I was all about growth in my 20s and 30s, but right now in my mid 40s, I sort of just want to get past it. And there's been moments that I so badly just wanted to explode and to react and to call time out and to scream, enough's enough, God, just stop caring so much about me and my formation and just let me go. Let me run with the horses. I'll take a couple of air bubbles still in there. But I remember there was this one moment as the pressure was so intense in me, and I was just longing to react and to run away and to call it quits. And I was just like, and I felt like God sat me down like Jeremiah. And this is for all of our 40s and 50s and 60 years out there. He sat me down and he was just like, Matt, you're only 20 years in. You got another 25 to go. Trust what I'm doing in you, and then just wait to see what I'll do through you. So to all of our 40s, 50s, 60-year-olds out there feeling like you're yet again getting wedged and pressed and pushed on and examined and cut and explored by the potter. Guys, God's not done working on you. He's not done working on me. He's not done working through us. God's not done working in us and through us. So let's trust the potter's hands to be good and true and right and caring and kind, and trust what he's doing in us, that it's worth it, so that we can fully see what he's going to do through us, through our kids, through our grandkids, through the legacy that our lives lead. Let's not grow tired of a loving God lovingly working his plans in our lives. Let's not grow tired of trusting what he's doing. Guys, clay gets worked a long, long, long time before it gets shaped into its final form. And some of us just need to let God keep working in us, preparing us, because a time will come when the potter sees that the clay is finally ready, sees that the clay is finally ready, and the potter will take the clay and he'll form it in his hands, and he'll move it to his will, and he'll start working with it. When he puts it on his will, he will intentionally make a foundation. And this is where he will push profoundly hard on the clay yet again, holding its side, pressing its top down, and he does it to create a secure attachment to his will, to make sure it's attached fully in his care and oversight. He'll make sure that it knows beyond a shadow of a doubt who it is attached to, locked into, held to, secured in, and then he'll start slowly, purposefully drawing out the purpose of the clay, finding its unique shape and purpose, slowing it down at times to keep it balanced and even, and then speeding it up at times to draw it out and to pull it up, bringing not only the clay to life, but into purpose and into a plan, into a reason for existing. And all of this comes in the steady presence of his hands, the gentle touches and nudges of his fingertips, scraping and guiding and forming. And all the clay has to do is stay on the potter's will, stay in the potter's hands, to let his fingers shape and move, and to let him form them, to let him correct, to stay responsive and open to discover who and what it is being made into. But again, this is so hard. This is so slow, which got me thinking, do you know which pottery gets made fast? The stuff that just gets turned out? The generic mass junk that you buy at a discount rack, use once and throw away. That's the stuff that goes through the process quick. That pottery, that stuff, that's the cheap stuff. That's the normal stuff. That's the stuff whose purpose is plain, small, simple, cheap. But to God, you're not cheap. You're not plain. You're not small. To God, you are priceless. You are his masterpiece. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So don't grow weary of trusting God's process, trusting his guiding touch, trusting his correction, trusting his molding, because because the best stuff takes time. Man, can you imagine being Jeremiah and walking into the potter's house, walking down the road to the potter's house with all of these questions of how do I run with horses? How do I know that I'm made for more? How do I be all that God intended me to be? How do I do this thing that God has put in front of me and not grow weary with walking with men? How do I run with horses? And then walking in, and all of those questions are in your mind, and then you start to see the potter work. And you sit down next to him close enough to smell the clay, to feel the water spinning off, to hear the spinning sounds and the scraping and the gliding of his fingertips. Slowly working, slowly forming, slowly pressing, slowly making what was once a lifeless piece of dirt become full of life, full of purpose, full of potential, full of value. Beautiful things can happen at the potter's will if you'll let the potter work. Jeremiah couldn't help but be reminded of all of this, to know all of this. But what's crazy to me is that's ultimately not what's recorded for us to remember. Because remember, everyone would have known this, been reminded of this. I mean, everyone would have known that the process the potter goes through of taking something and making it into something. I said that wrong. Taking what would be nothing and making it into something. You guys get it. He would have known just walking into the potter's house of being reminded of this process. Just being there would have started to answer so many of his questions of, how do I run with the horses? How do I get made into more? How do I not get tired of just running with men? How do I become fully who God designed me to be? He would have walked in and known, stay with the potter. Let him keep wedging and pressing and molding and shaping and spinning and balancing and correcting. Let him keep working on me. Let him keep making something beautiful from the lump of my life I bring him. Jeremiah's questions would have started to be answered just by walking through the doors. But what's wild is God lets him walk in, be reminded, and then he says, actually, there's another lesson. There's another lesson from the potter I want you to know, but more importantly, for all of those you pastor and for all of those who will be pastored by you for years to come, Jeremiah, here's what I actually want you to know. Here's what was recorded. The Lord gave another message to Jeremiah. He said, go down to the potter's shop and I will speak to you there. So I did as I was told, and I found the potter working at his wheel. But the jar he was making did not turn out as he had hoped. So he crushed it into a lump of clay again and started over. Then the Lord gave me this message. O Israel, can I not do to you as this potter has done to his clay? As the clay is in the potter's hands, so are you in my hand. The jar did not turn out as he had hoped, so he had to crush it. Guys, God, he wants to make something beautiful out of your life if you'll let him. If you'll let him mold and shape and draw out and purify, if you'll let him form you fully into who he designed you to be. But also know, if you refuse, if you're stubborn, if you dig in and just won't let go and won't let him shape you, if you cling to those things that you know are killing you and hurting you and putting junk back in you, know that there will come a time when the potter has to say, enough's enough, and you need to be reclaimed. Enough's enough, and you need to be reclaimed. Because catch this, he doesn't throw the clay away. He doesn't say you're worthless. He says, it's time to be reclaimed. Let's try this again. And trying again looks like crushing it and starting over. He crushes it and he starts the wedging process of pressing and cutting and exposing and refining and looking. And sometimes that process hurts so much. And sometimes the hardship in our lives, the things that we're facing, is not because of the evil and the hurt in our world. It's actually because God loves us, loves you so much. He's trying to use it to press in, to wedge, to prepare, to correct, to protect. Man, and instead of seeing that current trial or trouble or pain you're facing as a problem, man, what would it look like to say, God, how do I partner with what you're trying to teach me, do in me, mold in me? How do I let this pain have purpose and partner with what God is trying to form in you, do in you? You know, earlier I mentioned that this year's been a hard year. And I've had some hard moments for me, and then I felt like I was back on the table getting pressed and pushed and cut and wedged. And those moments have hurt and were so painful and stressful. But what I know and what I deeply, deeply believe is that God was using all of that for my good, my growth, to continue to make me into who God designed me to be. I just had to let him work. I just had to trust the process. I had to trust the pain. Guys, I so deeply want each of you to know that God has a beautiful plan for your life. And if you'll surrender and trust your life in his hands, just like a lump of clay into the hands of a skilled potter, God can do more in your life and through your life than you could ever hope or imagine. But I also want you to know this is a caution, and that this caution Jeremiah had for Israel is also a caution for us, that if we don't trust, God will have to crush us to start over, to reclaim us. See, Israel, the people that Jeremiah was talking to, they stubbornly refused to fully follow God's plans, to refuse to let go of the things that they knew were ruining them, hurting others, refused to let go of the practices that they knew were messing up their lives and others. And God begged and begged and begged and begged for them to listen, to respond, to turn, and they simply refused. And so since he's the master potter, the skilled craftsman, he had to crush them, to rebuild them, to start over. God wants to do something beautiful in your life. Will you trust him? Will you allow him? Or will you force him to crush you so that he can lovingly rebuild you? God loves you so much. He's inviting you to crawl into his hands and to let him mold you into something so much more. To mold you into someone who can run with horses. Jesus, thank you that you are the skilled potter who loves us so much, cares for us so much. Thank you that in your love and care and grace, you work us through the process of being prepared and refined and exposed and healed and cured. And you work all of the junk out of our lives and you push out all the air bubbles, all the little impurities and things that is a part of us that you know will eventually hurt us. And then you invite us to lay our life in your hands like clay in a potter's and say, mold me. Shape me, use me, form me. And so God, I pray for all of us who feel like we are feeling the pressure of your hands, the pushing of your hands, shaping our lives, that you will help us to surrender and respond and trust and to let you do in us what you need to do in us so that you can do what you designed to do through us, that you will make us people who can run with the horses, made for more than just being a lifeless piece of dirt. God, let us trust you, to trust the process. But God, for those of us who know that we've got some hard parts in our heart, some things that we are stubbornly refusing to let go of, areas that we are resisting giving you access to, things that we are refusing to turn from, behaviors that we know are destructive. God, I pray that the warning you gave Israel will be a warning that we will hear of, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, but I will crush you if necessary, because I love you so much, I can't let that stay in you. God, may we heed that caution and surrender so that you don't have to do that. Because God, you want to make something beautiful in us. So may we trust you to do a beautiful work in us so you can do a beautiful work through us. We love you, we thank you, and we trust you. It's in your name we pray, amen.